Tonight's slate is loaded, wall-to-wall games, endless lines, and more noise than anyone can realistically break down in one sitting. So instead of rushing through everything, I locked in on the matchups that actually matter. The games where injuries flip rotations, where recent form tells a deeper story than the standings, and where the numbers quietly expose what's about to happen next. These aren't just random picks off the board, these are the matchups I keep coming back to, the ones that demand a closer look when you go beyond the box score. And stick around, because at the end of this breakdown, I'll highlight 3 of the best player props that stand out most on tonight's slate. So watch full video now. Let's start with Game 1. Atlanta Hawks at Charlotte Hornets. This one opens with Atlanta sitting at -5.5, a total set at 237, and an additional note on the Hawks starting 5 listed at +2, referenced exactly as stated. Right away, the market tells a story of separation, but the floor availability tells an even louder one. Let's start with the projected starting units. For Atlanta, the starting 5 includes Trae Young, who might be back, alongside Young Daniels, Rasheer Johnson, and Okongwu. That "might be back" matters, because Trae Young's status sits firmly in the gray zone. He's listed as questionable, and even if he plays, there's a clear note of a possible minutes restriction between 15 and 20 minutes. Atlanta may get his presence, but not necessarily his full influence. Charlotte counters with a starting group of Ball, Miller, Canapel, Bridges, and Cocker-Breener, though even that comes with heavy uncertainty layered on top. The injury reports are where this matchup really tilts. For the Hawks, Tingis is ruled out, Toppin is ruled out, Young is questionable, and Dante is questionable. That's 2 confirmed absences and 2 significant rotation pieces hanging in limbo. Yet despite that, Atlanta enters this game with momentum, specifically coming off an 8-point road win at the Cavaliers, a result that gets referenced directly in the context of fading Charlotte afterward. On the Hornets' side, the availability issues are even more severe. Connaughton is out, Sexton is out, Williams is out, and Ston is listed as 100% not playing. On top of that, Ball is questionable, creating a very real scenario where Charlotte could be without both point guards. That's not a minor inconvenience, that's a structural problem for any offense trying to function. These 2 teams have already played this year, and that prior matchup matters because Trae Young was on the court in that game. Atlanta won by 5. That result lines up eerily well with tonight's -5.5 spread, especially considering Charlotte's current injury state is not improving from that earlier meeting. There's also a clear situational angle attached to this matchup. Charlotte is described bluntly as pisswater at basketball, and the explicit betting angle noted is to fade the Hornets after that game. Harsh language, but it reflects the frustration with Charlotte's on-court product, particularly when undermanned and unable to control tempo. With a total sitting at 237, the under 237 is listed alongside Atlanta's spread, suggesting expectations of inefficiency, disrupted rotations, or simply a game that never quite finds offensive rhythm, especially if Ball is limited or unavailable and Trae Young is capped at 15 to 20 minutes. The spread lean here clearly aligns with Hawks -5.5, supported by a previous 5-point win, Charlotte's injury list, the possibility of missing both point guards, and Atlanta coming off that 8-point road win. Any parlay-style observation would naturally revolve around Atlanta maintaining control against a depleted backcourt and the game failing to fully reach that elevated total if offensive engines are restricted. Game 2, Houston Rockets at New Orleans Pelicans. Now we shift to a game that feels louder, heavier, and far more emotional underneath the numbers. Houston enters as -9.5 favorites, with a total of 233.5, and the over 233.5 specifically noted. That spread is commanding, and it immediately raises the question, why such a gap on the road? The Rockets' projected starting 5 features Thompson, Oki, KD, Smith, and Shangun. Size is the defining theme here, and it's emphasized repeatedly. Houston holds a significant size advantage down low, highlighted by a specific weight comparison. KD has 60 or 70 pounds on Derek Queen. That's not subtle, that's a physical mismatch that shapes how this game is expected to be played. New Orleans counters with Fears, Jones, Murphy, Zion, and Queen. Zion's presence matters, especially with the note that Zion is back healthy, but the surrounding context makes this a much tougher climb. Injuries again play a central role. For Houston, Ian is questionable, Finney-Smith is ruled out, and Van Fleet is ruled out. Despite those absences, the Rockets are framed as a team that simply doesn't lose back-to-back games. That narrative is reinforced by their previous result, a road overtime loss to the Nuggets, a game emotional enough that the head coach called out referees afterward. That's frustration, urgency, and response potential all rolled into one. On the Pelicans' side, DeJounte Murray is out, removing another layer of ball handling and perimeter creation. While the Pelicans are coming off a rare road win, the tone quickly shifts into skepticism. There's a blunt prediction stated that they will lose 6 games in a row, suggesting that win may be more of an outlier than a turning point. There's also a long-term organizational undertone mentioned, a top 3 draft pick conversation, paired with uncertainty over whether the Thunder own their draft pick. That's not directly impacting tonight's box score, but it frames the broader incentive structure hovering over New Orleans' season. With Houston laying -9.5, the lean here follows the narrative of bounce-back energy, interior dominance, and a Pelicans roster missing DeJounte Murray while facing a physically imposing frontcourt. The over 233.5 sits alongside that, implying pace, mismatches, and scoring opportunities driven by Houston's size advantage and urgency after overtime heartbreak. Next Game 3, Toronto Raptors vs Milwaukee Bucks. This matchup opens with Toronto positioned at -5.5, and the total set firmly on the under 219.5, immediately signaling expectations of control, defensive pressure, and a slower, grinding pace. Toronto comes into this game with authority, not just in the line, but in the body of work backing it. The Raptors' projected starting 5 features quickly: O.J. Abaji, Ingram, Barnes, and Jakob Pearl, a group that has already proven capable of dictating matchups across multiple positions. On the other side, Milwaukee counters with Rollins, Porter, Kuzma, Trent, and Turner, though even that configuration is unstable given the injury uncertainty surrounding several of those names. Toronto's injury report is relatively contained. RJ is out, while Jakrl is listed as probable, suggesting the Raptors are largely intact as they continue to stack results. And those results are loud. Toronto owns a 16-1 record, and they arrive here coming off a 10-point road win at the Heat, a result that reinforces both consistency and composure away from home. Milwaukee's injury situation is far more concerning. Giannis is out, Prince is out, Kuzma is questionable, Anthony is questionable, and A.J. Green is questionable. The concern is stated clearly: if the Bucks are missing A.J. Green, Kuzma, and Anthony, the margin for survival narrows dramatically. These teams have already met before. In that previous matchup, the Raptors beat the Bucks by 8 points at home, and that game notably included Giannis on the court. That context matters, especially now that Giannis is unavailable. It reframes the current -5.5 line as a continuation rather than an overreaction. Milwaukee's broader trend profile adds even more weight. The Bucks hold an 11-6 record, but they are 3-7 in their last 10 games, a split that tells a story of erosion beneath the surface. Meanwhile, positional matchup checks were explicitly stated and favored Toronto across the board: Ingram over Kuzma, Barnes over Trent, and Jakob Pearl over Turner. These are not abstract comparisons, they are direct advantages that compound when rotations shrink. With the under 219.5 attached, the expectation is that Toronto's control, physicality, and matchup edges limit Milwaukee's efficiency, especially if multiple questionable Bucks fail to go. The spread lean here aligns clearly with Raptors -5.5, supported by a 16-1 record, a recent 10-point road win, an 8-point win in the previous meeting, and the absence of Giannis. Any parlay-style analytical scenario naturally pairs Toronto's spread control with a game that stays beneath that 219.5 total due to attrition and defensive leverage. Game 4, Detroit Pistons at Dallas Mavericks. This game immediately pulls you in because the line itself feels inverted. Dallas sits at +5.5, with the total posted at over 230.5. And almost everything about this matchup hinges on availability, fatigue, and who's actually left standing by tip-off. Detroit's projected starting 5 includes 35, Cade, Duncan, Thompson, Harris, and Durant, a group riding tangible momentum. The Pistons have been back 2 games in a row, won both, covered the first game, and most notably won outright as a dog versus the Celtics. That's not theoretical confidence, that's production. But context matters. Detroit is on 2 straight road games, traveling from Boston to Dallas, a transition that tests legs, rhythm, and focus. On the injury front, the Pistons list Isaac Jones as questionable, leaving their rotation mostly intact but not untouched. Dallas, meanwhile, is walking a tightrope. Their projected starting 5, Nembhard, Marshall, Flagg, Washington, and Gafford, is entirely labeled questionable, and the injury report is extensive. AD is questionable, DLO is questionable, Williams is questionable, while Irving is ruled out, Lively is ruled out, and Exum is ruled out. That's not just missing star power, that's structural strain across ball handling, interior presence, and lineup stability. One specific matchup concern was called out directly: Tobias Harris guarding AD, a situation that becomes even more volatile depending on whether AD plays or not. And then there's Cooper Flagg. Flagg is coming off the best game of his NBA career, and his role looms large regardless of Dallas' final injury configuration. This ties directly into the featured player prop discussion. The player prop highlighted is Cooper Flagg over, with no exact stat line specified. The angle is entirely situational. If AD plays, the Pistons must focus their defense on AD, potentially opening space and opportunity elsewhere. If AD does not play, the expectation stated is that Cooper Flagg may need to score 40 again, placing the offensive burden squarely on his shoulders. With Dallas sitting at plus 5.5, the spread lean reflects uncertainty rather than dominance, a recognition of home positioning, Detroit's travel fatigue, and the unpredictable rotation landscape. The over 230.5 aligns with scenarios where defensive structure breaks down, pace accelerates, and scoring responsibility consolidates around primary options like Flagg. Now let's move to our best props. First, we turn our attention to Jakob Poeltl and his combined rebounds and assists line set at 10.5. Poeltl enters this matchup fully healthy, having overcome earlier season injuries and careful management on back-to-backs. His minutes this season have varied, but in recent outings, he's shown consistent capability: 28 to 29 minutes against Miami, 25 minutes against both the Knicks and Boston, 23 minutes versus Charlotte, and 26 minutes against Portland. These figures suggest that in a matchup against Milwaukee, where secure minutes are projected between 28 and 30, Poeltl has a strong opportunity to surpass this line. Historically, whenever Poeltl has played at least 27 minutes, he has gone over this rebounds plus assists mark in all but 3 games, each of which saw him finish with 10 combined rebounds and assists, narrowly missing the over. His rebounding prowess is evident, with 15.2 rebound chances per game translating to an average of 8 rebounds, and while his assists have been more modest this year at 2.3 per game, his potential assists stand at 2.8, demonstrating his ability to contribute to playmaking. Milwaukee's defensive profile offers some interesting angles. The team ranks top 10 in rebounds allowed to opposing centers, typically fields big lineups, and is likely to have one of Bobby Portis, Miles Turner, or Jericho Sims on the floor at all times. With Giannis out, foul trouble risk diminishes, and although small ball lineups could limit Poeltl's impact, the combination of minutes, historical performance, and matchup context points toward a strong chance for him to exceed 10.5 rebounds plus assists in this contest. Shifting to the offensive end, Cade Cunningham presents another compelling narrative, with his points plus assists line set at 34.5. Cunningham has emerged as the primary engine for his team, posting 17.5 potential assists per game, second in the league, alongside 9.2 actual assists per game, also second overall. His usage rate is staggering at 29%, translating to roughly 20 shot attempts per game and an average scoring output of 26 to 27 points. The matchup against the Dallas Mavericks paints an encouraging picture. While Dallas maintains a top 10 defensive rating, they have struggled specifically against guard play. Their roster features Ryan Nebert, Brandon Williams, and Max Christie, none of whom are elite at shutting down high-usage guards, creating exploitable space for Cunningham. Dallas ranks in the top 10 for points and assists allowed to opposing point guards, and Cunningham has already demonstrated dominance in this matchup earlier in the season, recording 21 points and 18 assists for a combined 39 points plus assists. Projection ranges suggest Cunningham could again reach a points plus assists double-double, easily surpassing 20 points and 10 assists. Adding intrigue, Anthony Davis is questionable for Dallas, which would further weaken their rim protection and interior defense, enhancing Cunningham's opportunities to both score and facilitate in this high-leverage setting. Finally, Donovan Clingan's line of 19.5 points plus rebounds commands attention as he faces a Sacramento Kings defense that has been historically vulnerable. Clingan's minutes this season have stabilized, consistently landing in the mid-20s and occasionally exceeding 30, although his last game against Golden State saw him limited to 22 minutes. Sacramento ranks among the worst defensive teams in the league, allowing the most points in the paint, the second most points per game to centers, and the most rebounds overall. Clingan's scoring profile is straightforward but highly effective. Offensive rebounds, putbacks, dunks, and alley-oops dominate his output, with minimal reliance on jump shooting. His rebounding ability is evident with 17.5 rebound chances per game, the highest on his team, often translating into double-digit boards even in roughly 25 minutes of play. In games where he has logged at least 26 minutes, Clingan has exceeded his points plus rebounds line in 6 out of 10 contests. Notably, he has gone under in challenging matchups versus Orlando, Minnesota, and New Orleans, the latter by the hook, and recorded only 12 PR against Utah. Conversely, he has produced impressive outputs against elite competition, including 30 PR in 26 minutes versus the Lakers, 32 PR in 27 minutes against Golden State, 25 PR in 27 minutes versus Milwaukee, 27 PR in 28 minutes against Dallas, and 38 PR in 34 minutes against Chicago. Returning fully healthy from injury, Clingan now faces a Kings defense tailor-made for his skill set, promising ample opportunity for points around the rim and dominance on the glass. Across these three standout props for Thursday, a clear theme emerges: opportunity aligned with execution. Jakob Poeltl's secure minutes and historical efficiency on rebounds plus assists against a big Milwaukee frontcourt, Cade Cunningham's elite usage and previous success versus a vulnerable Mavericks backcourt, and Donovan Clingan's matchup against one of the league's worst defensive teams for centers all converge to create a night of potentially massive production for these three players. Each line tells a story of skill, opportunity, and historical precedent, and as Thursday's slate unfolds, the stage is set for Poeltl, Cunningham, and Clingan to leave a mark in their respective matchups, carrying the narrative of dominance, precision, and basketball intelligence from the opening tip to the final buzzer. If you made it this far, you already know this slate isn't about chasing every game, it's about understanding why certain spots matter. If this breakdown helped you see the matchups differently, make sure you support the channel by liking the video and subscribing, because this is where we slow the game down and let the numbers tell the real story. Drop your thoughts in the comments: which matchup stood out to you, and which injury situation do you think changes everything tonight? I'll see you in the next one, right here on Beyond the Box Score.